All this year, events are being planned to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the United States, and Fort Ticonderoga played such an incredibly significant role during the Revolutionary War, both the capture of the fort from the British, but then a major expedition that happened during the winter of 1775 and 1776, when Colonel Henry Knox moved more than 60 tons of heavy artillery, cannons that were captured in that raid on Fort Ticonderoga. He moved them over frozen lakes, rivers, and mountains to Boston to help the Continental Army and General George Washington fortify their forces, giving them a decisive advantage, leading to the first major American victory of the Revolutionary War. Our Jack LeDuc has more now on how that incredible historic feat was remembered.
Without what took place 250 years ago at Ticonderoga, there would be no evacuation day in Boston, and there'd be no United States of America. So we find this as some of the most significant events that transpired in the American Revolution.
General George Washington got a Christmas present delivered to his door from Colonel Henry Knox in 1775. Knox's sleighs conveyed 60 tons of artillery that Washington used to drive the British from Beantown. The captured arms came from Ticonderoga, Crown Point, and Saint Jean, Quebec, after American victories. The British attempt to take over North America began its downfall when the cannons reached Boston. Washington's meager army shelled the redcoats, driving them to New York City with many soldiers and ships. But more ups and downs were ahead for the young country.
Well, we're going to load up and hitch all of our various teams of horses and oxen here right by the actual bridge where the artillery from Fort Ticonderoga was floated up the Lachute River. Once these pieces are mounted onto these vehicles, they are going to be transported down the portage roads to the northern end of Lake George, where historically they awaited a scow, a gondola, and a petty auger to be transported up the water of Lake George to Fort George in the beginning of Henry Knox's noble train of artillery.
And then on to Boston.
And then on to Boston.
Washington had planned to bombard the British out of Boston from nearby Dorchester Heights. The Redcoats had been conducting siege warfare in Boston. Knox's road was not easy. Roads were dirt and rough, if any existed at all. Cannons were moved in the winter of 1775. Soldiers had to work long hours in freezing temperatures.
Blanket coats, like you see these two guys wearing, are really, really common garments that exist sort of on the fringe of 18th century urban life. So along the frontier where you see trade with native peoples being prolific, there are lots and lots of blankets and warehouses, and these blankets end up being perfect for outfitting soldiers with winter clothing, particularly in the North Country.
Mostly teams of oxen and some horses hauled the essential artillery to Dorchester Heights, located on a hill in Boston. The Americans were busy assembling the artillery they had laboriously dragged 300 miles to a location that they would make history at.
Historically, oxen were used as draft animals, probably as much as horses were. They don't move as quickly, but I find the temperament a little easier to handle. They're gentler animals.
Easier than what?
Well, they're
Than a horse?
Yes. I feel safer around an ox than a horse. But I don't mean to offend horses. They're just calmer and a little slower. But they're able to do, training-wise, if you work with them enough, you can train them to do just about anything a horse can do.
Fort Ticonderoga organized the parade, provided many costumes and period wagons and equipment to celebrate the 250th birthday of the country. For Mountain Lake Journal, I'm Jack LeDuc in Ticonderoga.